Ice Cream, You Mean Podcast, would like to share an exciting announcement. Nemesis of the pod, my number one enemy, JD, is taking part in Star Makers International, a singing competition focused on finding the next top Filipino talent. The twist here is that JD will be competing as Buwan, the producer side of JD, less cryptids and filming their iPad with their phone, and more serious music jams. The event happens on July 26th and 27th in Redondo Beach, California, and it will also be streaming. If you'd like more information, please head on over to x.com/katabuwan. The date is coming up very soon, and we ask that you give them all your love and support. Hey everybody, welcome to Ice Cream You Meme, the second episode of summer.
You gotta do the High School. Did you watch High School Musical, right? Oh
no,
my god, this is
perfect.
Oh, Ben, how are you gonna tell me? How are you gonna get mad at me for not watching Twilight? You haven't watched High School Musical. My brother in Rise. There's a part where they go. Sorry, like before class lets out, like for summer, and I'm like, every time it's summer, I'm like,
in your head, just run through it.
God,
okay.
You haven't watched High School Musical?
No, but I have watched Twilight. So, my
this
culture.
is the trade-off. Like, I've never seen Twilight. You haven't seen High School Musical.
Two kinds of people in this world. There's High School Musical people and there's Twilight people.
I was High School Musical people. Our middle school mascot was the Wildcats, so I felt very deeply connected to it.
Okay, all right, understandable. Yeah. I saw a post yesterday that was like, I used to ask girls if they were Team Jacobs to know if they would fuck with Mexicans, and I was like, wow. So I was playing, what a mind game. Also, Taylor Lautner is like Italian or something. Like he's like German and Italian, I think.
They really, everyone went to a phase of thinking like Taylor Lautner was not white or not like entirely white.
Yeah, right.
Thanks, Twilight.
But he is. Like, it's like, I don't know. The Twilight, the representation of Native people in that movie, very questionable. In the books, too.
Oh my god, it is horseshit. Yeah, we all had the Taylor Lautner phase because I came from the Shark Boy and Lava Girl Taylor Lautner time. Yeah. So, and he was also very, like, you could have been like, oh, he's white. I'd be like,
yeah. Well, also, I mean, like, I feel like the Spy Kids, like Robert Rodriguez, like, like a lot of his films are very like Latino, and that's like a cool thing about them. And then you have like, Taylor Lautner snuck in there. It's like, well, he can play. It's like, why is he the one playing like Latinos and like Native Americans?
He's tan. Let's put him in.
Yeah.
Oh my God, Taylor Lautner, look what you done.
Yeah. I don't know. Isn't he? He's married to Taylor Lautner too, right? That's like the.
I remember that during the Taylor Lautner, Taylor Swift era. There would be Taylor Lautner or Taylor Swift Lautner if that was a thing. Yeah. I may be wrong, but I think he is now married to another Taylor, which is also just like to do that twice is a problem. Yeah, I mean, like, are you just like actively like seeking?
You're seeking people out with your name, which is
I'd
weird.
be a little bit like. It's like once is like a little fun, a little funny, a little cute. Twice?
Yeah, right. Yeah, you're allowed one time where it's like, oh yeah, it's like it's Taylor and Taylor, but then like after that, it's like it's Taylor and Taylor again.
Like, what are you doing? Like, what is? It's like you just like to hear your name.
Yeah. TL and TL. So you're on notice, Taylor Lautner.
For many reasons, but this is the one that breaks the back of whatever creature we're riding on.
That's it. But yeah, so last week we were all about the beach, and this week we all about the meat. Call us Arby's, baby.
Welcome to the Meat Madness era of Ice Cream You Mean Podcast.
Yeah, that's the name of our podcast.
No, because I usually just call it ISYM, and I was like, let's say it out loud.
I feel it. The full name.
Let's government name our podcast. Ice Cream You Mean Podcast. Yeah, it's a real. Our episodes are generally very meaty, but this one is meaty and meaty. So it's like all meat. If we're a pizza that you're gonna order at any place, this would be the.
Yeah, you might think this is a Brazilian steakhouse because you might need to tap out with all this meat. It's just going to keep coming.
Yeah, but I mean, it's real meaty. That's it. That's all we can say.
That's good. Yeah. Well, shall we start?
Yeah, let's go.
Right into it, baby. Vita Carnis is an analog horror series by YouTuber and artist Darian Quilloy. The series starts with a 32-minute, quote-unquote, research documentary where a robot voice lays out the world of Vita Carnis. The video is produced by National Living Meat Research. In this world, a new kingdom of life suddenly appeared in 1931. This new kingdom, not animal or plant or fungi, is made of muscles, organs, and bones, but the forms range greatly. They seem to consume meat and also appear animal-like, but without skin. And I'm going to have to share my screen with you. I know. Again, and we are, don't look at that. Don't look.
Pretend I do not see.
Close my eyes.
Tell me when to open my eyes.
Oh my God, I'm so dumb. I was clicking on the shared screen. Like, why isn't it changing? Oh man. Okay. Let's try, buddy. All right.
Okay, I opened my eyes.
So, you can open your eyes now.
I will now gaze into...
So now we're going to go through the species of Carnis. The first species they describe is the crawl, pictured here. For those of you listening, we're on YouTube. We have a video where we're gradually becoming video essayists rather than podcasters. Go. But we're like the laziest video essayists. So
you know what? This is a new era of video essays, okay?
Yeah, video. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, as little preparation as possible is our goal. So yeah, the first species is called the crawl, which in the video they describe as small intestines. But given Darian's drawings, I think it looks more like blood vessels. What do you think? Taking a look at this.
Yeah, it looks a little more like blood vessels.
Yeah, I'm not a small intestine expert, but it looks a little more bloody. They're not sentient. They can photosynthesize, and the crawl spreads around areas like fungus and serves as the prerequisite for every other form of Vita Carnis to spawn, which leads us into creature 2 called trimmings, which form on nodes of the crawl. Trimmings are small, hairless little meat nuggets. They only get to about 8 inches and basically look like tiny skinless raccoons. Shout out to last episode, our Montauk monster. But yeah, what do you think of this little guy?
I'm really endeared by the dog bed photo version of it. Mm-hmm. It's got many limbs. This may be the Montauk monster. Who knows? But yeah, it's been it's. I know if I saw this in real life, I'd just be like, "Ooh, that's nasty." But just put a little bit of fur on it. Put a jacket on it.
Yeah, I mean, like everything looks kind of wet in this analog horror series, which adds to the grossness. But they're kind of cute. I mean, like they're like little gummies. Yeah. Like there's now he made a plushie out of this, so this is like the fan favorite.
So it's cute. It's agreed upon.
Yeah, I'm with it too. And then the next species that we get into is called the meat snake, and we're better than commenting on that, obviously. Yeah, so for those of you looking, there's it's a big snake made of meat, and then a little snake made of meat. They start off tiny, and then they grow to an average length of 16 feet, 5 meters. And meat snakes are scavengers. They live off of dead animals and corpses. And they use the skulls of the things that they kill as like their own skull. So he's got some cool drawings in there where it's like using horse skulls as his own skull.
I have a question.
Yes,
is it
please.
Like Pokemon evolution from the previous creature, or is it like this meat snake is like on its own kind of thing? Because you said the crawl, the trimmings form of nodes from the crawl. Is the meat snake an individual creature?
The meat snake also comes from the crawl. I think everything pretty much comes from the crawl.
The crawl is like the starting.
It's like the basis, and then like little nodules form, and then sometimes they like mutate into something else. And I'll specify when that one comes up. But this one I think is probably going to be your favorite. We're told about the mimic. So here we have. There we go. Take a look. We have some lovely practice. I knew you were not going to care for this because it's very. This is like the most Mandela catalog-y portion of it, where we have like people with like weird large faces, and then the kind of raw meat looking heads and hands.
It's so bad. The last one is so bad, actually.
The lady or the. Yeah. I think he's a great artist. I like Darian's style,
but it's also so nasty.
He's got good chops, and also I wanted a big shout out. I'm going to shout out a couple more times, but the practical effects in it are like really good. Like this is like I think very impressive for like a very small budget, single guy analog horror. I just think it's dope.
I love it. I think it's great because it makes me feel nasty inside.
It's yeah, right. That's what you want. And so mimics, as you may have guessed, they mimic their prey, and their main prey is, of course, humans. They're humanoid. They have the skinless smile, bulging eyes, and long limbs, and extended fingers. And the more humans they eat, the better they get at mimicking humans. Oosh. And then there is the harvester, which I would say kind of looks like a meat raspberry. And it has subterranean meat vines covered in venomous spikes. And so this is the one that, like, it grows, like the crawl kind of mutates into this. Like, it grows and stays on it. It doesn't, like, pop off. And the harvester waits for a victim to step on these vines, poisoning the prey with venom that causes the unfortunate victim to bleed out. And that feeds the harvester. And then there's the host of influence. This one is the least often seen. You can kind of see it here, where it's like that figure standing right there. It looks like a humanoid head and torso and arm sprouting out of the ground with long spikes protruding from its back. And then the spikes emit orange spores, which compel the infected creature to sacrifice themselves to the host of influence. Mm-hmm. And then these spores can be carried on the wind, so you can't get close to them or you will be taken under their spell. Right. Next up, we're introduced to the monoliths, and there's only 7 of these on an island in Canada's Hudson Bay, arranged in a circle. They're skyscraper-sized beings standing on 2 legs, leading to a torso with many long tentacles and a head like a hole, to quote Nine Inch Nails.
It looks like a beer bottle opener thingy.
Or like one of the wine.
Yeah, like
the wine thing where you like twist it in the cork popper. Yeah, it's very much like that.
Oh my god.
And then finally there's the singularity, which is a floating black orb with strange electromagnetic signatures. And it's also on the Hudson Bay, and it's in the center of the circle formed by the monoliths. So
you said the crawl is not sentient.
Yeah, it's kind of like a fungus. Like, it just kind of spreads.
So but the trimmings, the meat snake, the mimic, everything below the crawl is like sentient? Okay. Yes,
as far as we know. Like, it seems like even the harvesters, the meat raspberries, are able to move. Like, he doesn't explain how. It's like, if I wanted to be real nerdy and pedantic, I could be like, well, how did they move when they have roots stuck into the ground? Whatever. But he says they can move. So it's like, yeah, everything kind of has some sentience and some ability to kind of, some agency or ability to move. I
feel it. I like that.
Yeah. So that's like the first section of Vita Carnis. I wouldn't really consider any of that spoilers, because it's really, just describing the world of the series through a collection of PowerPoint presentations with a VHS filter over it. So I'm going to get into a brief recap of the rest of the series as it exists so far, which is only the first season. And it's not super cohesive or plot forward. But if you want to watch them for yourself, now is a good time to pause and watch them. We'll wait.
We'll wait for the entire period. So this episode will be 10 hours long. Or however long this is.
I think it'll be like an hour, probably. Right. It's not super long. I watched these all on Darian Quilloy's Vita Carnis viewing order playlist, which currently features 10 videos after the documentary / slideshow portion. The last of which is a trailer for season 2, and so we'll worry about that in the future. The first video is a classic analog horror video where it appears to be flipping through channels on a CRT TV before finally settling in on a cooking show. The show is demonstrating a recipe for cheese crawl penne. A robotic voice explains how to cook the dish, which features freshly harvested crawl, the meat tubes from the documentary, thrown on top of some boiled penne and topped with the crawl and a handful of shredded cheese. It's less upsetting than watching someone make hotel bathroom carbonara on TikTok, I would say that. But it still doesn't look great. Beyond the robotic voice, there's a couple of flaggable bits of strangeness in the video. For one, the person preparing the food is wearing gloves and what appears to be a respirator mask. For another, the voice highlights a bright orange powder called Flavor Enhancer, which has to be kept below 60 degrees Celsius to prevent neutralizing the flavor. The second video is a pet care guide for taking care of your very own trimming, the small, skinless meat baby that we all want in our homes. So this video is about the discovery quote and it's also, this one I think was my favorite. Very good practical effects. He's got like a whole little puppet, and he said he made it with like a stapler remover to make like the little mouth that moves. And it's all paper mache. It's great. I would highly recommend it.
That's so cool.
The next video is about the discovery of, quote, and again, we're better than this, an extremely engorged meat snake in a train tunnel in Europe after World War II. The video is heavily redacted with clear clips missing and jarring jumps between shots. Then the video after that is the longest after the 30-minute documentary. It's very much in the analog horror, very Mandela catalog-y, where it starts off with an emergency alert system, and it's kind of warnings about the risks of mimics, complete with images of mimics posing as people in the kind of police sketch style that I showed you. JD is not a fan of, very distorted features. And then we're giving some information that conflicts with the documentary onto how to deal with mimics. So the documentary instructed us to run from a mimic. In the alert, you were told to stand your ground. In the documentary, you are warned not to try to attack the mimic, even with a gun. In the alert, you're told to target the legs and head. And then the documentary warns you that a mimic may be indistinguishable from a person, but the alert reassures you that there are clear signs that a person is a mimic. After the alert, the video shifts to a found footage format of a brother and sister walking to investigate the death of a neighbor they believe to have been caused by a mimic. Due to technical issues with the camera, the pair decide to head home, but midway through the walk, the brother disappears, and then the sister is chased to her home by a mimic before the mimic finally breaks in and catches her before the camera cuts out. The video after that, Species Anomaly Report, seems to get credit as the most disturbing entry in the series, and I listened to an interview with Darian Quilloy. And so the mimic survival tape, he got some flack because he shows the mimic costume that he made a little much, and it's a little kind of, it's cheesy looking, you know. It's like he made it himself with like not too much, right? It looks like a guy in a suit, and so after that he was like, okay, I'm gonna make the next one actually scary because he was getting too much flack for the suit. So the Species Anomaly Report video cuts between shots of the map of Canada showing the distribution of harvesters, and then there is a photo of a family along with some Skinamarink style images of what appears to be kids playing in the woods. It seems like in the video one of the kids pictured in the family gets killed by a harvester. It's more or less 2 minutes of Mike peaking wailing while it cuts to shots of a skull melting and then the family photo being edited where the kid's face is like all distorted and kind of melted too. Then the mom from the photo finds the body, and we're given another round of screaming as she finds her son's body. And then we see that the family photo has both her and the kids with the fleshless faces. It's almost all the still images, aside from some tendrils crawling up the ground, and then the melty skull stuff. The series of maps displayed through the video shows that the harvesters and potentially all of the Vita Carnis are migrating closer and closer to Hudson Bay. The yelling is rough, but if you can handle listening to our podcast, I'm sure that you can get through it. Next up, we have the flavor enhancer commercial, which gives a name to the company, Nutri-Right.
Too many R's.
It's a lot of R's. And a logo, which is a red triangle inside of a black circle, very reminiscent of the Singularity. The commercial promises that the flavor enhancer will allow you to enjoy every morsel of flavor in your meal, and announces that the deluxe version, which is just a larger jar, has been released. Then the commercial heads into kind of they live territory as the messages flash across the screen to buy now, and there's voices whispering consume, and it's very, good stuff. The Uncovered Documents, one word video, is more or less a collage of images, quick cutting between headlines about the flavor enhancer, images of an ant, and photos of men in military uniforms or suits with the same logo from the flavor enhancer, a red triangle and a black circle. The subtext is that the flavor enhancer company, which uses a red triangle as their logo, seems to have government officials in their pocket. Then the penultimate video, Message, is a video from the acronymized organization Carnis, which is directed towards the viewer. The video lays out the conspiracy elements of the story, that there are powerful forces working to keep the true scale of the Vita Carnis situation under wraps. And then the final video of the first season is titled Facility Zero, and it's another Carcass video, this time outlining a mission to infiltrate and capture a facility near the exclusion zone on the Hudson Bay Island. It begins with a brief and then follows the operators as they carry out the mission to take over the facility and find out what big meat is hiding in there. We're left with an uncertain ending to the season, as it ends with the team breaking into a door, followed by screaming and gunfire. From the base context clues that my dumbass was able to pick up, the series seems to be primarily set in the late 80s and early 90s, hence the analog horror aesthetic and timeline. The series is also more Canadian flavored than a bag of all-dressed chips. And in particular, there's a focus on Hudson Bay and a large island in that bay that does not exist in our reality. The fictional island seems to be the center of Vita Carnis activity, being where the monoliths and the singularity are presumably located. Now, here's where I'll briefly ride off some other YouTubers' works, namely Matt Pat from The Film Theorist, who is now retired, RIP, and Curmudgeon, who both have deep dives on what's really going on with the story of Vita Carnis. Because there's a thread of conspiracy going through the series, but I am much too lazy to pause on single frames and look for clues. So thank you, Matt Pat, for pointing out that in a newspaper clipping from one of the first videos, there's a story about a radio tower being overgrown by the crawl, and that in another newspaper clipping, there's a story about trimmings gathering near satellite dishes, drawing a connection between Vita Carnis and our technology, where the creatures seem drawn to electricity and radio signals. And thank you, Curmudgeon, for reading through all of the news clippings, alerts, and bits of hidden text in the series. Through these clippings, we learned that National Living Meat Research was just a group of students putting together a documentary, and that they are now being hunted by the government. Curmudgeon does a great job of pulling together the threads of the series and explaining the conspiratorial nature of Vita Carnis. And Curmudgeon illustrates what I think is now one of the coolest aspects of Vita Carnis, which is the emphasis on misinformation. Throughout the series, you are given contradictory information on the Vita Carnis, from how to survive an attack to whether or not you can trust an advertisement from a seemingly innocent ingredient. And the audience has to consider the sources of each video in order to understand where the truth lies. So there's a nice little media literacy theme there as a bonus. And also, again, my favorite thing was the practical effects, especially the mimic segment and the care for your pet trimmings guide. Both the Film Theorist and Curmudgeon also took time to collect and analyze a series of, there's a storybook kind of hidden there in single frames throughout the series. So the fairy tale hidden in the video tells the story of a magical royal family. While on a journey, the prince becomes lost on a remote island. The prince puts himself into a magical sleep for many, many years, and eventually is discovered by creatures on the island. The creatures find the prince and can tell that he's powerful, and most of them decide that he should be left alone. They want to leave him to heal and sleep, but then a smaller group decides to actively nurse him back to health. The prince awakens and is grateful to the creatures, and the creatures ask that the prince help them survive. The prince uses his magic, and the prince promises that he will help them more after he is able to return home. The prince then leaves the island. So here we have kind of a parallel story where the prince is probably the singularity. That's the presumption. The magic is the creation of Vita Carnis in 1931. The travelers are aliens and the creatures are humans. And there was a small group of presumably Canadians that made a bargain with this alien power. This more or less has us up to speed with the world of Vita Carnis. Darian Quilloy says that he plans on creating 3 seasons in total, and because of the unexpected success of the first season, that he's very excited that he's going to actually have some money to put into production for the next couple seasons, especially practical effects. He says to look for those. Those are going to be his that's his favorite part, he said. Recap done. So JD, how do you... I don't think we've ever talked about this, but how do you feel about like lore? Are you a lore hound? Do you pick through stuff?
Only if I'm like particularly like attached to like the story. If it's like a little too beyond me, or it feels like a little too much, even if it's in something that I like, I won't look into it as much. But like if I'm like real deep into it, I really enjoy like lore, because I love being able to read something and then just immediately get it and not need to seek like external like addition stuff of like, I understand this immediately, or it took me a bit to understand this. That's cool. But also sometimes I'm like, I like to ingest a body of text or a video and something, and I'm like, oh, it turns out there's something more about this, and then now there's more about this. Like that's like cool to me, but only if I'm like deep,
like a deeper reading and kind of like the fleshing out like a world that you really already enjoy is kind of entertaining for you. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Good to know. I'm not a lore person personally. I think like there's things that I like that are like very lore deep, and I usually I'm like a very surface level person, I guess, where I'm just like I like knowing that there's more stuff there, but I don't necessarily seek out like, you know, like in like Dark Souls, like I don't really care about like the backstory of every boss that you kill. You know, like I'm kind of just like, no, I like the vibe, like I like the look, I like the aesthetic. I like knowing that they put thought into it, but I don't necessarily need to know what all those thoughts were.
I feel it. Like sometimes if it's too like extensive and a little too hard for me to access the lore, I'm just like, that's you know what, that can be a secret from me.
No, for sure. Yeah. Like Dark Souls, they have like a lot of things where it's like you find out bits of story by like reading through the description of items, and it's like, I can't be doing all that. I'm not playing games.
People may have witnessed on the I Stream You meme that we very, very much do not read. For people who
we don't be reading. No,
you know, on the podcast, we don't read outside of it. I mean, we read outside of it, but we don't read like that.
Yeah. No. Like when I'm playing a game, I'm not trying to,
this is
read
not
a book.
Essay.
Oh, this is not an essay. This is not what this is. So, we're going to dive into, speaking of lore, the term hyperdiegesis, coined by Matt Hills. But before we get to the hype, let's discuss diegesis. So diegesis is a slightly tricky term because it has two simultaneous meanings right now. The first meaning, which goes all the way back to our boys Plato and Aristotle, refers to the representation of actions and thoughts to the audience by way of a narrator, right? So this is contrasted with mimesis, which represents like an action or thought by way of action, right? So mimesis is showing, diegesis is telling. But, yeah.
I'm like Man, we didn't write together again, but we are writing together again.
We are on it again.
What's wrong with us?
How did meat bring us to narratology? I don't understand, but here we are. But these are a little less important to us. These are kind of definitions, because a more popular definition in the field of film studies developed in the 1950s. When some French guys apparently misrepresented or misunderstood what diegesis meant. So in film studies, the term diegesis refers simply to the story world, right? So the things that happen within the world of the story are diegetic, while things that happen outside of the narrative of the world of the story are termed extradiegetic or non-diegetic. So if we have a classic sequence of a character walking along listening to music, and then they pull off the headphones and the music cuts out, the sound is diegetic, right? Dialogue, object sounds, footsteps, gunshots, anything that happens within the world of the film is diegetic. But if we have a sound that exists outside of the literal world of the film, then we have extradiegetic sound, right? So the score of the film or a narration or voiceover is a non-diegetic, extradiegetic sound. To bring in Matt Hill, we have the narrative world as presented to the audience, which would be diegetic, but Matt Hill's term, hyperdiegesis, refers to, quote, the creation of a vast and detailed narrative space, only a fraction of which is ever directly seen or encountered within the text, but which nonetheless appears to operate according to principles of internal logic and extension. This is often associated with the iceberg metaphor. I feel like JD, I feel like we wrote the same thing.
Yeah, I'm glad you got to go first, because then you explained a lot of things that I sort of was like, look it up on yourself.
No. Okay, so we're good. We're
me and Ben, let me tell you this, Ben and I write on our own. We don't talk before we get on here, but our brains, you can imagine what we were like in college if we ever did like a project with each other. It's
mentally we are the crawl. We are one mind.
We're a little body, a massive nerve on the ground. Don't step on us, please.
Yeah, we're little fungal blood brains. We are. This is often associated with the iceberg metaphor, where the narrative that we're exposed to is just the portion above the surface, while the rest of the world of the story exists out of sight. So, good world building is not something new to the internet era, right? Speaking cynically, there's a definite economic incentive for studios and production companies to support the creation of hyperdiegetic works. And for the last couple of decades, we've seen a shift in media production towards cinematic universes rather than standalone films and their sequels centered on a single character. Even John Wick, a seemingly single guy focused film series, has several spin-off films in the works, a TV show focused on the hotel, and another live action show in production, and an anime also in production at the time of writing. In a thesis on transmedia storytelling, Aaron Smith suggests that a good litmus test for whether something succeeds as a hyperdiegetic story could be the question, would a gamer want to navigate this universe? Something that I don't think that we've mentioned in previous discussions of ARGs is how corporate media loved to create an ARG, especially in the 2000s, to go along with the show. So like Heroes, Alias, Lost, all had official ARGs that encouraged fans of the show to explore the universe of the show through websites and other kind of puzzles and, mind game stuff. Analog horror as a relative of this ARG phenomenon definitely appeals to this mode of self-driven exploration for fans. Many analog horror works are more focused on the premise than creating a story centered around characters. As mentioned in our general intro to analog horror, the involvement of the audience in analog horror is one of the key features of the genre. Vita Carnis not only involves the audience as potentially at risk from the threat of a new strange life form, but also poses the audience as investigators, uncovering a mystery and conspiracy that runs through the series. If early ARGs and hyperdiegetic works served as a way to grab more cash and attention from pre-existing fans, I think that it's fitting that small, independent creators can use the same tools to create the effect of a lived-in world, full of mysteries ready to be explored. Or just vibe through, if you're like me and don't want to pause and look at every frame of the video.
Beautiful.
Thank you. Darian Quilloy seemed like a very nice guy. I listened to a couple of interviews with him, and he was talking about how he was hoping that it wouldn't blow up, kind of like, or that he was like, it's like my first kind of series. Like I was kind of like, one day I'll have a good like analog horror series, but then this blew up, and now people are like all like, wow, you misspelled this. Wow, look, you didn't know this. Oh, wow, look at, I can't believe you thought that this was like the right way to do it. He's like, yeah, I would have paid like a lot more attention if I knew that it was going to become so popular.
What you do is,
Yeah.
It's really cool, I think. Can you remind me when this came out?
2022?
2022, that's young.
Yeah, it's like a year old. I think like a year old, 2022. Like I think just summer, I believe.
Okay.
Into 2023. So yeah, it's pretty new.
Okay. That's pretty cool. It is. Those are some good photos that I love and appreciate, but I hate to look at some of them. Like texture wise, amazing, interesting, but it's Darian did a great job, and I'm glad that it's like people like it and kind of like looking at it. Like for people who are consuming this and are readily looking at those images.
Yeah. Check him out on Instagram. He's like a very active artist as well. And he's very inspired by Trevor Henderson. Yeah. So if you like Trevor Henderson, you're gonna like his work. His cool and wet and creepy guys.
We love artists who can work in a texture and make it feel holdable. Visceral is like it feels like can hold it. Yeah. It's really it's interesting because you said I don't know what you said. It's like, okay, first season, did you say it was not super cohesive, not plot forward, but it is?
Yeah, I mean, it's like, I think you could watch any one of them and they would probably function just fine. It's like a little analog horror bit. There's not like characters that you follow. There's not, I mean, in that kind of analog horror way, it is very like disjointed where everything is kind of self-contained. And to get those threads, you kind of do have to do the work of like, oh, look, there's like this frame that shows that, the crawl is spreading towards radio towers. And then in this one, they point out that, your trimmings like to listen to the radio. So like they're trying to learn about us through radio waves, right? Like that kind of thing. So it's not like there's not like a direct plot. I mean, it's kind of, he has an idea of where he wants the story to go, and it's already written the third season. He said he hasn't written the second season yet, or he's still, when I listened to the interview, which was from like 6 months ago, he said that he had not yet written the second season. So like, that's kind of where he was at, was like trying to figure out how to get that middle part of the story done.
That's tasty.
Yeah. And I think like analog horror, with like having this kind of very like world building focused storytelling, I don't think he's going to like bring in like, a character that we follow, or even like it's this kind of battle between like groups and interests. And it is all very much like on that like political scale, right? Where there's like the Neutrarier company, and how did they tie into, the Vita Carnis, and then how does the, living meat research, and then how does Carcass, and all these groups that are kind of competing and vying together.
Interesting, because in my research on my topic, upcoming next, Vita Carnis is mentioned as an example of good world building.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So I'm excited to go through mine and then like get your thoughts on it as well, because for those watching, I was slowly scooching my way out of the screen, writing really squinty-eyed because I was like, oh God, same hat again. But it was good. Mine actually changed mid last week because of something that I read, and I think that was a sign from the skies wherever to make it almost exactly like Ben's. But yeah, the litmus test in your section, keep it in mind. Keep world building in mind. Keep hyperdigesis in mind. Keep world building in mind. Keep when Vita Carnis was made in mind. Keep 1931 in mind. Keep creature types in mind. Keep a large island that doesn't exist in mind. Keep no characters to follow in mind. Keep your entire research in mind. Keep the fact that people eat this in mind and the methods of eating it. Keep misinformation in mind. Okay. So everybody, you're just going to get at that. Ben, keep that in mind. And might stop and pause for question and answers. But I just want to say before we get into mine, our intro was 4 minutes long.
Good on us.
That's wild.
That's tight. We keep it tight today. That's yeah.
Easy peasy squeeze. It's summer. We're going easy peasy. But yeah.
Yeah, we got the beach to get to.
We're going to the beach each.
Yeah.
Nicki Minaj.
We can't do Nicki Minaj now.
What's a beach related?
Beach Boys.
Wouldn't it be nice if we could go to the beach? But yeah. Let's talk about more meat. Let's get into some more of that meat. Then imagine, if you will, a big ass gaping mouth in the earth. Unimagine all of those people who looked at the Dune popcorn cup. Get out of this episode, you freaks. I want you. Just kidding. I want you in here. You know, okay? So
no, please. We need everybody in here.
But yeah, imagine a deep throbbing pit embedded in the ground. Never mind, don't do that. Today we're talking about the mystery flesh pit. There is no intro. God is no longer here. Buddha has abandoned me again. Yeah, we're talking about the mystery flesh pit. This is a project by Trevor Roberts. We love a Trevor working in the horror space, right? This started on a post in our world building on Reddit on December 31, 2019. Which as a December baby might as well been the next year. So I don't count that month. Trevor posted a big ass beautiful photo that I zoomed in on with my big beautiful brown eyes. It's basically, the post is a brochure that shows a pit, not a pit, but a very large pit with a little slice to give you a look at the inside of the top section of the mystery flesh pit. It has information on park activities, lodging, restaurants nearby, info on how you can explore the pit, a little blurb on the way that the pit throbs and how to safely navigate it. Wear shoes, stay hydrated, pregnant women, please don't go to it, and don't stray to the trail. And I'm going to share. Why is the share button right next to the leave button?
It's dangerous. It's a dangerous game.
I'm going to share my screen. So we're looking here at, I wish this was bigger. Hold on. Let's see. Zoom. Okay. Zoom. Computer enhance. So this is the pit. It's like if you go onto the link that's linked in my doc, it is a very big and beautiful image that you can zoom in on and read the whole body of text too. But this is the original image that was posted on World Building by Trevor, and it's basically this. It's, a poster that you'd see at a welcome center in the national park, and look at really closely because you're like, what on earth is this bad boy?
Yeah.
So this is the mystery flesh pit, and casually called mystery flesh pit, but is actually scientifically called the Permian Basin superorganism. So you'll be happy to find out that there's a Hard Rock Cafe and a Chili's 2 at the location. So you'll get a good chance to get food poisoning and a potential interaction with microbacteria that could be equally lethal for you. So here's a close-up on the middle section of the pit. You have, if you think of the size of this thing, it's real big. This is like a gondola thing. This thing that I'm having remember. Okay. It's the gondola. You're traveling to and fro. You go down here. These are some stairs. So it's big. This is just a section of it. Yeah. Okay. This is the entrance.
It's huge.
Right?
Huge. Yeah. Huge.
It's a huge pit on the ground made of flesh and meat. Here's a little cutaway from that brochure, a word on safety. As any national park would give you a safety guide brochure, you follow these rules to make sure that you don't get lost in the flesh pit and sort of interact with some very bad bacteria. Then we have some lodging and dining options. You'll be excited to know that there is a Marriott hotel near the pit, so you can enjoy a good stay at a hotel that I've never experienced. So if you hate it, can't talk on it. There's there's a Chili's 2 where you get to look outside the window and see the gaping flesh pit as you get into your I don't know, what did they serve at Chili's?
At Chili's? I feel like it's like American food, right? Like, it's
could you say, would they have like
burger fries?
So you'll enjoy your burger made of meat while staring into a flesh pit made of meat. Not sure if this changes anything for everyone regarding the restaurant and gastronomy options at the flesh pit, but you can rest assured that the restaurants in the surrounding area do not serve meat from the pit because, one, it's apparently fucking disgusting. And also, it's a felony to do any damage to the pit that isn't regarded as research or caretaking for the pit. Right? Yeah.
Protected. Yeah, national park, right?
I mean, maybe you can eat a leaf from a tree in the national park system, but don't eat a piece of the flesh pit. There's bacteria. Don't do it. Just don't do it. Right? Yeah. Trevor, our buddy, imagined what it would be like. I skipped an entire paragraph. I can't.
Run it back.
The mystery project came to be due to a combination of Trevor's interest in theme parks, abandoned theme parks, places that were defunct. He loves defunct land on YouTube and his skills in design. It's a beautiful creation that blossomed in the space of early COVID times. It started because he saw a rotting cantaloupe. I think it was a cantaloupe left out by his coworker. Trevor imagined what it would be like to stand at the edge of the melon and how it would look. So picture a melon, y'all, and get real small like a borrower and think, what would it be like to stand on the edge of this melon as it rots? Right? It probably
and somebody has stuck a pit in it somehow.
So, Trevor added some meaty textures to it, and he says a stock photo of an open pit mine in South Africa, and all of that combined together, you get the big, nasty mystery flesh pit. The full project, which is composed of materials you'd find at a park resource welcome center, along with material you'd find in a stereotypical research file and some videos on Trevor's YouTube channel, focuses on the Permian Basin superorganism, which is a, quote, natural geobiological feature, unquote, discovered in the 1970s, based in Gumption, Texas, which is not a real place. Sorry, Texas, you're already big enough. Drillers thought they had discovered an underground reserve of water, but turns out they just found a big old pit of this stuff. Upon excavation, they basically just determined further that it's just a big pit of flesh, right? It's a big ass meaty deep pit in the earth that researchers don't fully know the depth of or how it came to be. In 1979, the human record of descent was 19,102 miles, or for Americans who are unfamiliar with the concept of a mile and are fans of the San Francisco 49ers, that is basically 208 football fields right next to each other going downwards, right? But that's like as far as they've gone down so far, right? So think about that.
Okay.
Could be more.
So we don't know how many meat snakes would fit into the meat pit.
No.
The flesh pit.
Do you know how big a the size of a meat snake does not matter, but what is that?
The average size of a meat snake is 16 feet, or no, 16 feet about, or like But then the engorged one, I think, was like 40 or something.
So
like
we
that.
need a lot of those guys.
A lot of meat snakes.
A lot of meat snakes. But yeah,
even the engorged ones. Yeah,
even the big ones. According to Trevor's notes, it became a tourist attraction in 1976 and was ingested into the national park system in the 1980s, and then abruptly closed in 2007 due to some people getting fucking swallowed in an incident on the 4th of July. Nice. You can look up the photos if you're not watching us on YouTube or on Spotify. Hello. But in the mildest way possible, it is a deep ass pit in the earth that pretty much kind of looks like you like took a chunk out of someone and just looked inside that deep open wound. The pit's cross section looks like it has a bunch of internal organs, intestines, etc. It looks very wet to the touch, just like the trimmings and the meat snake, right? It is literally, if you just pulled that cross section, is literally if you just pulled someone's chest open without all the bones and walked inside of it. It's not like a festering wound at all. It's kind of just like the trimmings. It's just red. It's just red, pink. I don't know. Right. You might not want to look at meat when you're looking at these photos. Matter of fact, don't even think about food right now. Don't do it. The pit is just kind of there. It can throb and stuff, but it can also swallow you up and spit you out. Don't be nasty and walk in there without the safety guidelines. It can absorb you. It can make you into an amalgamation, right? No need for SCP-3512, which is that church thing that can make you into a flesh mound. This bad boy can do it very quickly. You don't even need supplies. You don't even need to be a magician. Just jump into this bitch. But side note, on the Discord for Mystery Flesh Pit, which I have joined, you can find me in there. Don't do it. The final rule on the rules list for the Discord group is any user caught mentioning the SCP Foundation will be mercilessly dunked on. So here I am, dunk on me. Try me. I'm not immune, but I just miss.
Post this in the Discord, you coward.
Discord coward. I'm not undunkable. It's just potentially that I'll miss the joke by virtue of being a silly goose. So whatever. I'm not directly comparing it. It's just because we've talked about 3512 on here, okay? I'm just giving you various ways and options to turn yourself or someone into massive meat, okay? This section is called, Why is this MF, parenthesis P, so good? For me, the Flesh Pit is cool because personally, as someone who wants to write a book one day, it's very interesting to see people world build and have wonderful storytelling skills to bolster it, right? It's one thing to have an interesting world, but not know what to do with it in terms of the story. And I personally think that Flesh Pit guy, Trevor, does it pretty well, even if it's not a book or whatever. The storytelling is in the way that he answers people's questions on the official website, and in the text in the letters, the diagrams, and the research files that he writes. He full on writes incident reports, research files, newspaper clippings. So it's very cool. And yes, those are aspects of world building, the materials, but the stories within the material really go ham. For example, if we look at the 2007 Mystery Flesh Pit disaster investigation file alone, it's astounding how he can create a 14-page long document with images and format it in a familiar way, but the story within it is amazing. I mentioned previously that the park abruptly closed in 2007, and this is the file that about that incident. It's got a table of contents, background history, a full report of events, hour by hour kind of thing until the event ends, and then conclusions on the event, recommendations on what to do further for safety, and then some cool diagrams. It ties into the world that Trevor has developed very well without immediately going, this is about this and that is about that, right? You just have, I think Trevor has a world that's built so nicely around a body of text that it feels fitting and doesn't break you too much out of the space itself. You could tell that this is something that Trevor really enjoyed making with you, and to be honest, it looks very well loved and well thought out. There's also the cool FAQs and Q&A portions of the park's website that ties into so many things together. But also opens you up to more and more questions. For example, in the initial brochure posted by Trevor, I talked about how there's lodging and dining options shown on the poster. As Hard Rock Cafe and Chili's 2 serve protein meat options, you can hazard a guess that someone might have wondered if people were cutting up bits of the flesh pit to serve to customers as a fancy option or secretly, right? It's basically wondering if they're putting sawdust into their bread, right? This is answered in Q&A number 2, where Trevor outlines the taste, texture, and a method explored when it comes to cooking it and the creatures found within the pit. This is, he kind of says, like, people have tried it and it's not worth it to eat it. It tastes nasty. It's not that good at all. And then this sort of idea is directly addressed in Q&A 3, with Trevor answering, while there are hundreds of urban legends circulating around the park serving flesh from either the superorganism or any of the myriad of wildlife within it, these rumors are completely untrue. Because, I mean, if we existed in this world, I would want to know that too, right? Like, I remember the rumors about, like, KFC serving, like, pigeons and, like, Taco Bell meat being made out of horse meat. Like,
IKEA was horse meat
I'd
too.
Ask.
Right?
I'm not going to sit inside of Chili's 2, look outside the window, eating a burger and going, what if, actually, right?
So just a little bite. Just
am
a little
I
taste.
eating flesh pit? Like,
Let me see what it's like. You don't know if you've never tried it, you don't know for sure that you're not
what if it tasted like chicken? It doesn't. It tastes nasty, right? You might think then that because it is a flesh pit that throbs, moves around, swallows you up, does it feel any pain? Since it's a living creature, maybe, right? Maybe not sentient, but it's alive. That gets answered in Q&A 2 when people ask, does the pit suffer? Does the pit eat? Does it have supper? Does the pit suffer? And whether PETA or any other animal rights groups ever tried to say anything about all the work and potential exploitation being done on the flesh pit. Trevor answers with a simple, does anyone not? For whether it suffers, and then outlines why there's not much of a flesh pit park rights interest. It's because it's, like, largely unknown in the world of the flesh pit world, which, unknown? I'd be like, if I even heard that, I'd be like, y'all don't know about this? Why not?
Right. So it's known enough that there's a Hard Rock Cafe and a Chili's too, but not enough that
PETA isn't.
PETA cares.
PETA's not going to. It's not on the radar. Right. Trevor seemingly got a great and interesting answer for all the questions that he picks. It ties right back into the story, operates within the rules of the universe, but also expands it and leaves you going, oh, that makes sense. But also, like, okay, what else can you say, right? You want to ask more, not because it's more confusing, but because it's genuinely intriguing to hear about the flesh pit, but also to see what Trevor will say next about what he's creating. So if we think about, for people, that question in your section, which is like, do people want to uncover it and look into it as, like, that kind of thing as a concept? Yeah, people do. People want to ask more questions. People write, like, fan fiction about it. People RP, role play in the Discord. There's, like, sorts of things that people, like, talk about in this thing. So, world building. Now that you know about diegetics, diegesis, hyperdiegesis, Matt Hill, and all that stuff, let's talk about world building, right? During this whole read through, I was particularly interested in the materials for the whole project. So I'm going to share my screen again. JD, please do not press leave, you freaking ding dong. Okay. So this is some of the sweet, sweet, beautiful imagery on Trevor's website. Is this really what 200 zoom looks like? Right. So this is some of the images on his website. We've got sort of like a resource center where you can see, like, there's a little bit of the flesh pit here. We've got a bunch of signs. We've got a shirt that may have been from the 2007 swallowing incident. We've got wildlife safety sections. We've got an image of the flesh pit, a little gondola, the Flesh Pit National Park entrance sign that's commonly seen at national park systems, that kind of thing. We have here, maybe that doesn't need to be zoomed in. We have a photo of people going inside of the flesh pit during like a mining. This is a mining crew. They're mining the flesh pit, and this is one of the sections of the flesh pit, which is called the Southern Bronchial Forest. And if you're someone who's familiar with the workings of the human body and has seen this section of your body before, you know this looks familiar, right? Then we have like some like a hotel that exists in Gumption, Texas, which, as a reminder, is not a real place. Then we have like the sort of like the corporation that is keeping track or keeping an eye on the flesh pit, and also does containment corporation,
anesthesia,
anesthetic, surface administration kind of thing. So these are the things that he's made for it. And we have a bunch of like signage that is in or around the flesh pit. So you have the warning of like prolonged skin contact with nervous tissue may result in increased color perception range. This is temporary and often dissipates in 8 to 10 hours. So don't touch the flesh pit tissue. You might start seeing colors that you never thought you've seen before. Maybe like in my brain now, it's like, what if like this helps with people who are
like orange?
Yeah. What if this helps people who are colorblind? What if I suggest this to my brother who is colorblind, and I'm like, you should go touch the flesh pit as a sibling dare, and my brother can finally see colors out of the red and green range, right? Kind of thing. And then here's another caution sign. The venturial environment beyond this bulkhead constitutes the interior systems of a living organism. This environment is actively hostile to human life. Serious injury and death may occur without proper equipment and training. So it's a national park sign that's warning you of the scary things that could happen in this area. So the places he's designed in his work tell a story beyond the image, right? Trevor has a background in illustrative and architectural design, which is very cool. And it shows in the amazing design and imagery that he's developed for this project. The snapshot of the outside of the hotel, the high fence security area at the corporation responsible for keeping an eye out on the flesh pit, the photos of an RV, the signage, the advertisement, and the bloody t-shirt for the 4th of July, they all set the stage for a story of the mystery flesh pit so well because they surround the story with intrigue, but also explain it in a way. So these are the world building materials that he has, right? They don't necessarily tell a story, but they provide a jump off point for like some sort of like narrative kind of thing. But before we get into deep, let's take a step back and talk about world building versus storytelling. Reddit user Netherland succinctly puts it as such, very quickly and easy. World building is conveying information about the setting, and storytelling is telling a story with characters and a plot. Our other buddy, Kilez238, expands on it by saying you can use world building to tell a story or storytelling to build a world, but they are not the same. World building specifically defines the act of designing a world. However, deep into the details you want to go into it. This may or may not include designing events about specific people in its history, the 4th of July incident, but that isn't necessarily storytelling. That could just be called history building, right? Depending on how detailed you get. You get the gist. The materials for this project is world building, and the story that he's telling with them is the storytelling. For example, the bloodied t-shirt can stand alone as a thing that conveys some sort of information. It's a bloody t-shirt. Something happened to the individual wearing the shirt. And the story is the 4th of July incident, right? Where a bunch of park visitors were swallowed up by the flesh pit, and the state of Texas had to go into a state of emergency, which apparently Rick Perry was the governor of Texas during this time period. And he was the one who was like, hey, we're fucked right now during this period. I recommend reading the incident report because it's really like nicely detailed and is kind of what you would expect from like an incident report post, like something. It's a little bit anxiety inducing, at least for me, who's not the best with closed spaces. Reading through the part where it talks about people getting trapped in vehicles within the flesh pit, and then people trying to escape but eventually slipping on the flesh pit slime. And there's a section towards the end that discusses like a ranger that was essentially trapped alone in one of the like the areas and couldn't be saved in time to prevent him from being digested, right? There's like a part in the end that's like all communications with the ranger has ceased. So the conclusion is he's perished in there, has been digested, and that people in the vehicles probably were still in there when they eventually sort of concluded that they can't get in there and save them in time. They're just going to perish in there kind of thing. That's the storytelling part of it, right? This is like a series of events that happen to an individual surrounded by a world that's built on this flesh pit creature. Now that we've gotten that out of the way, let's go through some of the world building tips and tricks in horror that I've found online that supposedly help you write a better world, and check the flesh pit against them very quickly. So we have Joanna Neelius, who is a journalist and book author of scary stories. She wrote an article on the worst word, horror.org, horror.org, that features tips for world building. And to me, they made sort of sense. So let's consider them. Consider your Vita Carnis against these tips and tricks. Let's see how both of them stand against these tips. For reference, I only refer to the ones that I can connect Mystery Flesh Pit to, as it's not entirely a big old block of text with characters and like people that can go through them, right? There's no guy that is named and experiences trauma. Like we have the ranger, but he's not named, and only like in a couple of sentences where it's like he's trapped. No, we can't have him anymore.
Right. We have a cook off.
We're going. Right. I was gonna say a sentence, and I'm not gonna say it.
I think you gotta say it now. We got a meat measuring contest. Is that where you're going?
It was something about beating and meat, so I'm not.
Beating meat. All right.
So I was like, no, stop it. Thank you.
Class it up. All right,
okay, we said about meat snakes. Okay, we're almost in our 30s. Let's stop this.
Gaping pits. Yeah,
meat's beating them. Anyway, okay, let's go back to Joanna. Let's respect the section about Joanna. Joanna says that you have to strike a balance between the suspension of disbelief and logic, right? In terms of the flesh pit, it's situated in our world, basically, right? It's not on some random planet or some imagined land that isn't where we are. It's in the U.S., right? We're in the U.S. Yes, Gumption, Texas is an imagined place and not a real place, but in the photos Trevor made for the project, they situate us in a place that could just be anywhere in Texas, or even in like drier parts of our own states. It could look like a part of Arizona near like whatever. It could look like it's outside of Area 51 or Area 52, whatever, right? As a matter of fact, if you've even watched a single show about the paranormal, specifically ones about like aliens kind of thing, you might recognize a small town that looks exactly just like this in the travels of whatever cast you're a big fan of. He strikes a nice balance of this like big fucking weird creature in the middle of Texas by placing it as a sort of like oddity site, which is like, there's like oddity sites everywhere. There's like the mystery spot in like Santa Cruz, mystery, like all mystery places everywhere. So it's not weird to have this city have this weird place in it where we all have like that kind of thing, right? Like, sure, it's a big weird creature, but it's also like a well-studied national park, an abandoned location. And those concepts exist for us, right? Defunct land. It like focuses on a bunch of like abandoned weird places. It's weird enough that it's still weird, but it's also seated in a pretty logical space of an oddity location that you just accept because the world is weird enough and this could exist somewhere, maybe, right? Then Joanna talks about the idea that in like a good world building space, like something is scary to us because we don't understand it, right? There's the odd end of the balance that like Trevor strikes, where it's like, it's cool, but it's also just a little bit scary because like, why the hell is there like a flesh pit in Texas, right? Like, where did it come from? What happened to all of the people that it swallowed? Is it aware of what it's done? What happens then when it develops a taste for people? Could we control this thing if it just decides to go ham and steps out of the ground and we find that it's not just a gaping flesh pit and it's actually like the mouth or like some section of an inexplicably large creature that we can't even hope to defend ourselves from? Do we even need to defend against it, right? It's all funny on the Discord group, and it's right. You're like, oh, like what if this is like the injured body, the injured arm of like this creature, and we've just been walking in and out of this creature's like arm or like limb, right? But it's weird to think about the sort of like reality of this thing, right? If I lived in that world, honestly, even if I was all the way in California, I'd be like, this is why I'm anxious. There's a flesh pit in Texas. Like what if it's like okay, if you keep digging to the west, you can come out in California.
I don't trust Texas to not fuck with it either.
So it's like, come on now. Like, one of the questions in the Discord is like, what if you just nuked it? What?
That's like that was the thing in like Vita Carnis too. Is people like, well, obviously just like nuke it, and it's like that's not. Why is that a solution? That shouldn't just be like where to go. That's not.
And the answer to that on the Discord is like because that wouldn't be fucking fun. And then like there were people who reacted with like an American flag. And I was like, you know what? That is one of the questions that the U.S. government would ask. Why don't we just nuke Gumption in Texas because this thing is there? Like, then what if it like exposes like a bigger section of the flesh pit, and now you've just nuked a town in Texas? A nuke isn't. Also, that's how Godzilla was created in one iteration, was like nukes, so it got even bigger. So what if the flesh pit gets even bigger because you nuke it? And also a nuke isn't like localized. You can't just say, hey, just please impact this little section. You're gonna impact other states too, right? Like.
Right. I guess you could drop the nuke into the pit itself, right? Like they used to like detonate atomic bombs underneath the ground. So if you drop the nuke into the pit, maybe it would be contained. Maybe
it would just turn into a Godzilla 5 then, right? Yeah. Right. It's like a normal thing within the space in that like time, but also you're like, we don't understand it though, right? Right. There's a point in all the research that's being done in it, even if it's a shut down national park, right? This is something that's also mentioned by Rami Ungar, taking an existing thing and flipping it and reversing it to make it new and interesting or scary, right? Take the concept of national park system. We've all got a love for it. It can be a little weird as a concept, and you hope all of the parks are being taken care of and the people of the land are being acknowledged, but we're all pretty familiar with its intent, right? On the U.S. National Park System About Us page, it states, since 1916, the National Park Service has been entrusted with the care of our national parks. With the help of volunteers and partners, we safeguard these special places and share their stories with more than 318 million visitors every year. Perfectly normal and chill as a concept. But now, what if one of those parks, what if the Yosemite National Park was actually a giant flesh pit that no one really knows too much about, and it was also shut down because people got trapped and swallowed by the park? Sick, right? Normal thing. And now flip it and reverse it, Missy Elliott style, right? Writer Jamie Ryder, fun to say, talks about some of the world building tips, such as build in public, use exposition to your advantage, and make a comparison to well-known titles. In terms of the flesh pit, Trevor started it on Reddit, probably one of the biggest public spaces online to make anything, right? I was gonna be like, oh, it's not brutal out here, but everywhere online can be brutal, and Reddit can be. So right. Jeremy Renner's app was brutal for him, not for everybody, but for him. Right? Then we have exposition, right? Using exposition to your advantage, which we can link to Joanna's tip of not being too afraid of the details. In exposition, in answering questions, providing news article clippings, videos, brochures. We also have an emergency warning video from Trevor related to like an incident at the flesh pit, right? We see all of the detailed work that Trevor goes into and how he isn't afraid of going real nitty gritty, right? The details make it so much more rich and so interesting, and creates a cool world for him and for us to build on. And in terms of like comparing to, I'm going to stretch this section because I know there's like direct examples of this one, right? We could do a Vita Carnis and like, I was going to say My Little Pony instead of MFP. What the fuck?
MF Doom comparison.
Let's do an MF Doom and MFP comparison, right?
He would love this. He would love this episode, MF Doom. I think it's very food related.
Let's go. Right. Making comparison to well-known titles. The well-known title is like abandoned places, right? It's not a book, right? But it's just the concept of abandoned places, defunct locations, empty places, whatever well-known ideas that Trevor turned into something very neat like this, right? You wouldn't be surprised that Trevor is a fan of defunct land and the things it covers in general. Local weird sites, abandoned, left to just rot, are his jam, right? The well-known title thing is a thing that we're all sort of fascinated by, right? The Jesus theme park that's been abandoned, dumped duck rides, right? Abandoned amusement park rides chilling in the middle of nowhere. Hot. In terms of Paris Hilton, right? And just a little note, again, when looking for examples of world building, Vita Carnis was mentioned, so that's nice, right? Now let's talk about something else. Is it scary? Is it as scary as the mimic photo that Ben fucking showed me and I had to see and look away from? Does the concept strike some sort of fear, anxiety, terror, or something in you that moves the needle to this being scary or close to it? 3 things that scared me or weirded me out about this are, 1, is the idea that this thing was just randomly found during a drilling mission and people don't really know too much about it. What if in that world where Gumption, Texas is real and has a big ass flesh pit park in it, there's actually more of this. And the Earth just has actually a bunch of big pieces everywhere, right? What do I do about that information as someone who lives in that world? That's fucking terrifying. I wouldn't give up on that thought as someone who lived in that world. I'd just be like,
yeah, right.
every day of my life, I'd just be like,
haunting.
There's that thing there. Got me on the mind. It's all me. Pizza order, right? And the second thing is that this is not a brand new concept or idea in our world, right? The idea that something like this could be found and exploited as a location, as a creature, or whatever, right? Trevor speaks on this in the case of capitalism and exploitation. In a Forbes interview, he says, you look at all these other real world things where humans have encountered something miraculous and strange and immediately began to commodify it and sell tickets and things. If you want to look at it as a critique of capitalism, maybe that says something about the world. It's more of an examination of how we deal with the natural world, how we deal with tourism and spectacle. It didn't start as an anti-capitalist thing. I think it just kind of turned into that. And isn't that just the rub? In some of the Q&As, you have people wondering about the sentience of this flesh pit, whether it feels, who protects it, and how. And when you think about it in a different thread, there's also potentially like a bunch of people who could also argue that it doesn't matter that it does any of that. I don't care if it feels, it bleeds or anything like that. How can we profit off of this? And why shouldn't we profit off of it and show it off? It is an oddity. Let's do it. Like back in the time of, oh my God, this man is fucking 10 feet tall. Let's parade him.
Yeah. Aren't we all just meat being exploited for
exactly. Profit? Aren't we all just a flesh pit in the ground of Gumption, Texas, swallowing up vehicles? Right?
Relatable.
Right. And Trevor also speaks about how this is, quote, at least in the world, words of others, a very obvious critique of both the oil industry and the nature tourism industry. So if some people are ready to accept it, so some people are so ready to accept it as fact. And I mean, isn't that true? As we terrorize our home planet, shit on it, fight wars and justify them to gain resources and do other heinous things to it, what makes us think that a mystery flesh pit wouldn't be something that we could try to exploit, and eventually destroy for shits and giggles? It is, as I mentioned, there's a mining section. People are mining it. They're mining it for, like, you have the like Nutrarite thing, whatever that's going on in Vita Carnis. We have like, I don't know how to say it as well, like anidone, whatever, and it's like a
adrenochrome,
something like that. Like, right? It's called anidone. I'm just keep saying it wrong, but it's like some sort of like regenerative guy. I don't know words. I can just write them down. Regenerative like product kind of thing that's being mined out of the flesh pit, right? Who wouldn't bring back a traditional World's Fair and host it there with so many other oddities, right? A chance is a chance. Sees it like it were the land of the people, of a people that you wanted to systematically destroy because of whatever wild reason you think you have, right? But is that scary in terms of the flesh pit world when we all know that it's something to be true? Or is it more, does that concept make the flesh pit scary, or is it the people in the flesh pit story that are scary because they're committing the acts instead of the thing itself, right? As a thing that stands alone, it's not necessarily scary, right? Maybe it swallowed up all those people because, like, in the incident report, like there was a project being done to it, and it was just like a swallowing reflex. And
right. Well, it's also like if like the national park thing, right? Like people die in national parks all the time, and we're just like, oh. Yeah, it's going to happen. I mean, it's nature. Things happen that are out of our control. So it's like, why would the pit be any different?
So it's like, right. And then we have the last aspect of this that makes it a little scary, but we place it in the real world. Ben had the misinformation in world for Vita Carnis. We have misinformation in our world regarding the mystery flesh pit. In a discussion with Snopes, Trevor spoke about how surprised he was that people even thought this place was real. Arguably, yes, the information on it looks really well done and very realistic. But guys, mystery flesh pit would not be something easily covered up. And it wouldn't be forgotten in 2007. Have you seen YouTube vloggers? Who wouldn't go to that every day and get fucking swallowed like it was a challenge to be done? they dream of participating in the flesh pit. There would be massive hotels, massive motels in Gumption, Texas, with influencer discounts because of the droves of Jake Paul, whatever guy it is, would be there every day and he would have his own hotel. You would get Logan Paul, whatever, one of the Paul guys. The Paul experience at the flesh pit where you go and lick it or something, right? Trevor sort of thought that the weirdness of the thing was going to prevent people from thinking too much about it being real. But alas, Facebook and TikTok, the bastion of truth and very much real information, is a thing and will never cease to amaze absolutely anyone who has a lick of sense, right? As the internet is a place where you can freely get information from pages like Snopes, Wikipedia, or just like asking out loud, like, is this place real? I cannot speak to the wonders and amazements of seeing this and thinking it's real without... Why did I write NCT 127 fact checking this bitch? But like, anyway, it's still weird that you can see something like this and know that it interests you, but you just sort of stop and you stop at like, I see it and I believe this exists. End of. Instead of like, oh, I see this shit. I'm going to look into it and see if it's real or not. And then go, oh, it's not real. Right. But such is life, I guess. Right. So Mystery Flesh Pit is dope, and I really enjoy the material as a world and story through how Trevor was telling it, and it's very good to me. It's beloved to me because of Trevor's skill in developing a world and leaving it open for him and us as consumers to check in on later and say something about, right? The Flesh Pit is open to suggestions, future ideas, and it's not closed. The material that's developed for it is insanely deep and modeled well after the real deal. National Park System, the brochures, information about it, and it's well thought out and very fun for what it is. Any questions that you might have about it get answered in a way that you wouldn't have expected, right? And it shows the way that the human mind can make something and make it insane. It's like taking the there are people in this house concept with a disease and everything and putting that on acid and blowing it up, furthering the disease and reach of it and severity of it. It all shows the way the human mind intakes information and just makes a decision about it, whether it be the story that you also craft about this in your head or the questions that you ask or the fan fiction or are peeing in the Discord, whatever. Trevor's skill as a storyteller and as a designer and graphic maker work together well to craft a story that intrigues you. The more you know about it, the more you know, the more you wonder.
Is this real?
Look it up. Okay, You asked us. You asked it out loud. Go ask Google. Go ask Kojin. Go ask Bing. Go ask Jeeves.
If you're on X, ask what's
Gronk?
the robot's name?
Or Grok?
Gronk.
Whatever. Yeah. But yeah, that's the Mystery Flesh Pit, and I have 2 exit questions for us, Ben.
Okay.
1.
Yeah.
What restaurant would you like to see at the Flesh Pit Park?
At the pit.
Take it to the pit. Take it to the pit. Jump into the pit with this restaurant.
Let's go back to see like maybe Black Angus. Yeah, like steakhousey. You know, like I want like big slabs of meat.
You want to like wonder. You're like, yeah, sure. They're saying they're not serving me a piece of the flesh pit.
Yeah, you want the mystery.
It's like the concept of like it's like illegal meats in the US, right? Where you can't really have them, but there are chips that are flavored that illegal meat because they've talked to researchers and people who have access to those meats in other places to like flavor it as like this is horse meat chip. This is like it's illegal to sell this type of cheese here, so we've because of the maggots and the stuff that's in it, those kind of things. And you can't eat the puffer fish because it's a little dangerous. So this chip is now flavored it because it's like well researched and done. You get to experience that sort of thing. But like you're like, but what if they're lying?
In chip form.
This is made with horse meat, actually. So that kind of thing, right?
Yeah. And we could do a vegan bowl place too, like a beans and rice bowl place for the vegetarians. That's awesome. Just keep some edamame for like $14.
Edamame, dog. Oh my god! But yeah. I mean, what would I like to see there? Because the Black Angus is a good answer, and like I don't know, like what's a good place to like stand by the window of and like stare into the mystery flesh pit.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like it's kind of like you want it to be, well, you're going to a national park. You want it to be kind of like an event. So I could see also like maybe like a hot pot place. Like something where you're doing it with like friends, right? You're going there with friends. You're looking at the pit.
I don't know if I would want like a Korean barbecue place next to the flesh pit. Because that'd be too like...
What about Benihana's? Like a hibachi restaurant though?
It's... Because you don't have to eat me a hibachi. You would have a seafood option. No. You can get fried rice that has been fried by shrimp.
Just egg and
right. You can get a shrimp hibachi chef out there. Yeah, when I was writing this, my first thought was like an In-N-Out for some reason.
And sure, it's California.
It's in Texas. Is there?
The Texas version is Whataburger.
You can get a Whataburger there. Yeah. Ooh, we got Waffle House.
Yeah,
I would like. Okay, I would
watch people get thrown into the pit.
Because it adds a level of danger.
At the Waffle House.
Don't fuck with Waffle House employees when they can probably carry you into the pit. But like, don't fucking talk to me, or you're gonna talk to the hand.
You'll end up in the pit.
But talk to the pit. Mm-hmm. I'll introduce you to the pit. If you fucking but
you get smothered and covered in meat.
So like you no knuckle sandwich, but flesh pit sandwich, right? Kind of thing. And the last question is, do you think that with all our research knowledge and combined skills so far from all the things that we've read into, feasibly, do you think we could write a book or a body of work like this? Do you think we have the knowledge enough and like the imaginative skill enough to maybe not a book, but like a body of work, maybe disconnected, but still joined as like a universe kind of thing? Do you think we can do that? We're how many episodes deep into this? 27, 26? How many years have we been researching? 26, 20. All our years of research into what's scary and what's hot and what's trending, maybe several months after it was trending. Do you think we can do this?
Yeah, I think it's doable. I think we could come up with a concept. I mean, we'd have to figure out. I mean, would you want to do a story? Or I feel like with like analog horror, with this and with like Vita Carnis and a lot of the kind of the wave is like the kind of world building, like creating like a setting for people to play around in, kind of almost more like a sandbox. I think. Would you rather do that, or would you rather write a story?
I think we could start off with like a sandbox kind of thing, right? So we could develop it out loud, right? What is it builds in public, and then like sort of maybe not like sometimes. Not me speaking. Podcast moves of speaking away from the mic. Of like, I know that sometimes like. Writers' room people, they don't like look up or read into fan fiction because they'll be like, I'm running the risk of like writing something really close to the fan fiction and someone say like,
plagiarizing
like,
it.
You took it from this fan fiction. You're just like, no, it was a common idea. That's why I don't look into that. But we could build something in public and then like come up with a story ourselves based on like the connected present information that we have. Just kind of be like, well, feasibly, we could do a chaptered book about people that happen to live in this space, or a show or a series or a podcast within this space kind of thing. But I think we got two brains. We got the
alternate reality podcast.
We got the EP. We got my brother. We got lots of brains in this operation.
The voice actors.
We can do this. I think we have enough of us that we could do something.
Yeah, we have a good enough team. I think we can
get that shit going. But meat.
Yeah, I like that idea. Meat. So I noticed that like the pamphlet on wildlife had like a lobster with hands kind of looking thing. Were there other species that were mentioned as like the ecosystem?
Let's go to the website. Let me share this beautiful website with you. Here we are. Let me make this look big. Right. So here's the Mystery Flesh Pit National Park Archive, which I encourage you go to. So here's like some cool posters, some stuff. So here's a guy. It's a creature. It's a creature. There's creatures that exist in this world. Yeah. So this is an aquifer leech, right? It's a tube-like mollusk. Mollusk, I can't read. Similar to a shell, like clam or mussel, right? 2 meters, retractable. So we have like creatures in here, right? I'm pretty sure there's like other critters, right? So we have here wildlife safety. Know before you go, identifying wildlife. Here, bag. So this is what you would look like going in there, right?
Yeah, right.
We have fungal growth. We have surface fauna, macrobacteria, copepods, cephalopods, whatever. This guy is in there. So fucking pay attention if you're in there.
Bugs.
You got bugs. You could get attacked by bugs. So here's one of the access ways. Here's some advertising. Here we go. The parasitic fauna that exists in there. So we have these guys. We have the bone mites.
Oh, nice.
We have, we're gonna
hand lobster.
This critter, this bristleworm that looks like a centipede, siren, a shrieking cloistropod, a Venus shamble. Sounds like a dance move. Going in shambles. Amorphous shame. Right? So it's got critters in it, right? Look, this guy right there. So it's like a really...
It's a whole ecosystem within the pit.
Well, up humans, kind of thing. So I highly encourage everyone to look into these things because it's materials for a cool world in it. You've got incident report forms. You've got, where is it? I hope they show you see anodyne, right? That's what's being mined from here. You can, you have people who are like, denounce the flesh pit, don't believe in it. We've got CNN clips from the incident at the national park, that kind of thing. So it's a big old thing. They've got everything in here.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think like Trevor obviously is a very talented graphic designer. Like a lot of these look really dope. I think like the cross sections that you showed like very early was one of my favorites. Because it really had like the kind of like the eyewitness books.
Yeah. Yes.
Like, but yeah, like just like it looks like a biological,
You can get real big with
it,
it's great. Right?
Yeah.
Word on safety, park activities. There's so many things to look at in here. Like in terms of when you asked me about like if I liked lore, last night I was having fun with this because like zooming into the photos, he has thought of like the lower visitor centers, like any of the routes, the tours and kind of thing. And you can see a little detail here of like the poster being a little like scratched and cut up. So
right. Like it was scanned in. It's
the folds of the poster. It's kind of thing. It's to think that this is because he looked at a rotting melon and was like, what if?
What happened to that melon too?
Yeah. So it's the little creatures are well thought out kind of thing. It's really nice. And that's why I was thinking of like the meat snake, the kind of the crawler kind of thing. It's really cool.
Yeah. And there was like a good amount of kind of speculative biology in both of them. Like within the world building and the speculative biology.
It's so good. Like, I think we could do something in like speculative biology. We love a creature.
Yeah, we played around with. Yeah. We already made our cryptid in the past.
We could do that in terms of this. That could be our exercise.
Yeah, we can make some stuff.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah. Let's make some monsters at least. I mean, that sounds pretty fun. Did Trevor say why he chose meat or flesh as the
in the Forbes interview? He was just like the texture of it. He literally was like, let's take this image and also what if I put some meat? Kind of thing in it. So I haven't seen anything that's like I chose meat because of XYZ. Right. So that's why I was wondering like that's why I asked you to remind me when Vita Carnis was made. So both of these are like new, like 2019 and then 2022. They're new.
Yeah, and Darian Quilloy's reason for choosing meat was meat funny. So
I mean meat snake, engorged meat snake. I get why it's
engorged meat snake. Yeah.
It's a little crass, but I am a person.
Yeah.
I am a human being.
And I feel like there's like the levels that you can get into it. Like with Vita Carnis, he's like, some people just like the trimmings of the meat snake because they don't like, and they get like scared of the mimics and like don't go past that. So it's like with these kind of very modular world building things, I think you can really kind of take whatever you want out of it. Like you don't have to like get too into the nitty gritty if you don't want to, but you can there's more to explore if you want to.
You could just think about the aspects of the pit itself. What are some tunnels that you're really interested in? You don't have to think about like the creatures, the fauna of the location. You don't need to think about it as like a national park, like park system. You can just think about it as like, what the hell is this? You can just explore that avenue and not care about it like anything else.
Right, or the exploitation of the meat pit, or but if you want to, you can also think about that because there is that there as well that he's putting. Yeah. I think a meat pit thing. Like I was just thinking about like how during COVID there was like the whole kind of narrative around like a lot of national parks getting too many visitors, right, and kind of them all getting like trashed. and I was wondering if we could the meat pit reopens, but so many people flock to the meat pit that it like disturbs the microfauna of it, or the microbiome. Yeah,
and then we know that it gets irritated and starts to swallow up. Yeah. So like, what if it's like a period of dormancy between 2007 to now, where it's like only like the people working there kind of thing, and we don't know the sentience of it. So like maybe like hypothetically it's gotten familiar with the people working in it, but now it's like a flood of like other people who are like who are poking at it for like different reasons other than, and it gets irritated and like swallows up the entire organization, right? And it's just like
or gets like infected.
Yeah, what if this thing gets sick? What if it throws up? What happens to Gumption, Texas?
Yeah, like a huge amount of pus just like floods West Texas.
And it stinks. So like,
it's got to smell crazy.
It's like something someone asked about like it is a flesh pit. What happens during the summer? Does it get like what is the surface of it during the summer? And I think it was just like it's slimy enough that it's not going to dry out. And I was like, damn, that's fucking slimy.
Like the sweat. Yeah. Like, right. That's pretty slimy.
Like that kind of thing. So it's like you can explore that aspect of it and forget all the other things about it. But it's very interesting and nice to see the people eat this section of Vita Carnis, because people did ask, like, has anyone tried eating this thing? And there was like a discussion of like what it was like to eat it.
Both interviews with Darian had the interviewers ask him how the different carnies would taste.
I was like,
and he had an answer prepared. He was like, the crawl would just taste like meat. The trimmings would taste like kind of like not gamey. They would probably be like tasty, like succulent. And then the mimic would be like gamey because it runs around a lot. And the harvester would taste like he said like jellyfish or like squid, like kind of like squid or octopus, like just kind of tough and rubbery.
That's cool, because it's like different creatures, different like things that they're doing. So obviously it's like mussels.
Right.
So for the
meat snake would taste like shit, he said, because it's all rotten corpses. That's what it lives off of.
As for the flesh pit, it says mostly field workers reported that the mussel generally had a very gamey, so this is gamey, and offensive taste, but it was otherwise very tender. Other tissues such as lung, nerve, digestive, and fat deposits were similar in taste and texture to offal. And for those reasons, consuming the tissue of the flesh pit was mostly just seen as like bad form and not worth the effort. However, other people have stated that few of the lesser and non-venomous invertebrate species or the critters inside the pit are excellent once steamed and served with butter. So,
well, they look like lobster.
So it's interesting. I'm sure someone can pitch a like, yes, it tastes gamey and bad taste to and not worth the effort, but however I have developed, and now we have a new and now we have a new meat source, and now we're taking further advantage and exploitation of this critter in the ground. And it's...
Do you like organ meat? Are you like awful?
What is it? I do. Intestine. I forgot what it's called in the Philippines, but it's like, like the hawker market kind of things, and the people's just on the side of the road cooking them. That was like oh my god, I need to because we can clip this and put it on TikTok and hashtag it Filipino. Isaw street food. Isaw. It's made from barbecued pig or chicken intestines. It's cleaned several times, then boiled, and then grilled on sticks. It can get orange food coloring colored, but usually they're just kind of like barbecued kind of thing. It's like it's on a stick, and it's like the intestines are like.
Oh, I think it's kind of like wrapped back and forth.
Yeah, and it's very good. It's, put it in like the, a lot of places have like the vinegar, chili, onion sauce kind of thing. You dip it in that shit, and it's very good. Fresh. I've not found one here that's like as good as literally just getting it from a guy on the street. Yeah, I remember when we went to the Philippines in like 2018 or something like that. Like my mom, who is someone who doesn't go out at night here, literally like went out with her like brother to like get them out like night. And my brother and I were like, what the fuck is she doing? Like going out to get like this thing. Yeah. She loved it. And I was like, it's so true because it's good here. I was like, whatever. But yeah, I do. Yeah. So maybe I am one of those guys who I wouldn't do it because I'd just be so worried about this like concept of like this thing that whatever. But you know,
potentially,
could you pitch me to do it? I'd be like, we talked on the stream about eating a cricket. Like, is this equivalent to eating a cricket? I don't know, but
yeah, I think it's like it's not eating bug. No, I think but like if you got the secret menu at the Black Angus, and they were like, hey, you want a little cut of flesh? You do it.
I'd be like, Black Angus, what are you talking about? I'm like, this is not a coffee shop. Don't secret menu me. I would be down for a secret menu everywhere else except for a place that sells meat. Then that's the one place that's like, would you like access to a secret menu at like
In-N-Out?
Yeah, but it's like menu. double animal style fries. No one's gonna like be like, and this is made out of some guy's fucking arm in the back.
You don't know the term for it, but they do have it. Like, you just got to be in the know, JD.
I think that's my limit. Like, don't secret menu me at like Black Angus or like a hot pot place or like a thing. They'd be like, oh, the secret menu is like I don't know, like this is ostrich meat. I'd be like, oh, sick, let's do it.
Mm-hmm. Right. No, In-N-Out, you ask for a Donner style.
They fucking pull out a guy.
They get you some arm.
I'm like, you know what?
Yeah, freshly ground.
Stop it. This is not like stop it. I'm not trying to survive the winter on my way to California. Okay, like chill out.
Yeah. Truckee.
That would be like you would tell me the secret menu and I would have to know what it is, because if you're like, this is ostrich, this is bull, this is whatever, I'm like, let's do it. Let's put that in let's spin it around in my chopstick, stick it in the thingy. But if you're like, I can't tell you what meat it is, I'm like, you can take your secret menu and get back inside there, Mr. Black Angus.
Mm-hmm. Sure, yeah. You don't like a secret, like, an actual secret.
Yeah, I don't want an actual secret. You don't gatekeep the meat from me, dog. Like,
it's always a little questionable if they won't tell. Yeah, you got to know what something is.
It's very interesting, the sort of nature of in-world misinformation from yours and the outworld. In-world information for us, because I have not seen anything that is like too linked to like misinformation within the world, other than like the minister who's like, don't worship the because the pit actually leads to hell. Here's the open pit that leads down to hell, kind of thing. So it's very cool. Like preamps.
Yeah, I think it's cool that they both have such like kind of deep world building with the different formats too. Like I think the way the Trevor did it with like different pieces of individual media that you can explore each individually, and then having it done in like video format is like it's cool that you can do kind of a similar thing where like I think obviously like Vita Carnis, you kind of have to like put the effort into like pause at certain frames or whatever, like pay very close attention to catch the documents that he made for the show. But
this one is like, here's a bunch of posters and bodies of text that I have for you. Because like I remember when I was looking up, like when I saw that this was like it abruptly shut down in 2007, I had to like find I was like Control F 2007. Right? But I still had like was able to access like the text version of it and like the Imgur image version of it, kind of thing. So it was pretty cool. I like like in terms of Vita Carnis, I like the different explorations of me. Because this one, I don't on the funny nature of it. I see on like Discord, right? Like people talking about like one of the rules on it is like no vor. Right? I was like, okay, and like people talk about like exploring the meat, like the nature of the Discord, because it's discussing like meat and like open bodies sections of it. It's 18 plus, but there's also like the 18 plus section of it, and I was like, you know what, I guess kind of thing. But the different avenues of which the living meat aspect is explored is cool. People, there's
obviously it's the internet, so there are like horny Vita Carnis stuff out there like as well.
Rule 34.
Yeah, there's some of that out there.
Right. It's very cool. And then like the dates of findings of these guys is your guy is like 1931, and this was found out during an expedition in 1979. So that's pretty cool. Like, I do enjoy that these are both like in like made up locations in a real place, right? This is on the Hudson Bay in a large island that doesn't exist. This is in Texas, but in Gumption that doesn't exist. That doesn't exist. So it's very cool. It's like real next to each other in a nice way, but has like this sort of, I wrote down in here as like Vita Carnis feels like a cool contrast or thing to like the object materialness nature of like Mystery Flesh Pit. And it's not like I'm comparing it because it's like blah blah blah, but it's like a cool thing to like know both of them and then see the avenues of which a concept is explored.
What people are doing with meat out there on the internet.
Stop exploring how the ways that people are
exploring the strange meat.
Mine had a potential video game that was shuttered because of because of creative differences, and there's a tabletop game that also was I think the tabletop game is still going as a concept. And there was like a tabletop book that I was like, oh, I missed it, blah, 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 blah. Okay. Does yours, Vita Carnis, obviously has the show and merch? Yeah,
merch-wise, there's the plushie. And he said he wants to work on like stickers. So nothing too
crazy so far. But yeah, it's cool. Now I'm like, maybe I wanna look into the meat. I wanna explore the meat. Oh yeah, they still have I might get a Mystery Flesh Pit hat or a t-shirt kind of thing.
I think might have to.
So I know you're.
It's a write-off.
They have this is. I mean, like, would I get like a disaster shirt? Because you saw the July 4 t-shirt. Like, would I get like a bloody vintage 2007 t-shirt of this? It doesn't look real, but
there's blood on the shirt.
Yes, like blood on the shirt.
I think you'll definitely get some looks wearing like a bloody shirt.
I would like a tie-dye version of this, not like something else. But maybe I'll get like. There's one that says, I engaged in acts of industrial hubris against an ancient cosmic abomination buried in Texas, and all I got was this lousy t-shirt.
That's good. So I like that.
There's one that can be very generalized and not necessarily specifically to this is caution, God cannot help you beyond this point. Yeah, but it's nice. I think this is like obviously yours has the budget, the money for future seasons, and I think my guy the project is a little slow, doesn't have a lot of updates on new posts in a long time because he is for the past year he says he has been the primary at-home caregiver of his infant son, so it's not as he's a dad,
not a priority.
It's not he's limited. He says his workspace is also the room he sleeps in, so he's limited with how much he can do at night and that kind of thing. So he's got a baby that he's got to keep healthy and happy and entertained, and that can be in terms of the stuff he wants to do in here. But it's like a very big thing. Like, you as a fan, go write fan fiction, go Photoshop something cool, and he's not ever going to say don't fucking do that. He loves that kind of thing, right?
Go for it. Go for it, people. And shout out to Darian and to Trevor for making cool shit.
Meat projects. The all meat episode of Ice Cream You Mean. So, this episode was written and produced by Ben and JD. For all sources, please head to the website in the description below. If you'd like to reach out with a comment, suggestion, share an experience with one of our topics today, if you're Darian and or Trevor, send us a message at icecreamyoumean@gmail.com. All of the music for the podcast is provided by Yager Frank. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll catch you on the next episode. Bye! I might get